Get ready for jail, Liz. All right. So Chairman Loudermilk, this report came out 2 days ago. It's a report. They're investigating the investigation, and they're finding objective, abject criminality, in my humble view. And I'll get to what that criminality is for those who may or may not be convinced of said criminality, allegations of. Washington Today Committee on House Administration Subcommittee. I don't understand what these words mean. The Committee on the Subcommittee on Oversight Chairman Barry Loudermilk released an interim report on his findings on the events surrounding the January 6, 2021, as well as his investigation into the politicization of the January 6 Select Committee. This report outlines criminal recommendations against former Representative Liz Cheney. Top findings, I've highlighted a couple of them. Former Representative Liz Cheney colluded with star witness Cassidy Hutchinson without Hutchinson's attorney's knowledge. Former Representative Liz Cheney should be investigated for potential criminal witness tampering based on the new information about her communications with what's her face? I'm going to forget the first names. Cassidy Hutchinson. Jack Posobiec, these tweets were in the report themselves, or these DMs. I don't exactly know. I have to figure out how they got them. I wasn't able to surmise that from perusing the report. Alyssa Farah is reaching out to Hutchison. I believe the blue is Hutchison. I know you're busy, but is there a chance you've touched base with anyone re what we talked about Tuesday night? That's not suspicious wording at all. Hey, yes, this is Alyssa. I'll tell you who she is in a second. So I reached out to Liz. She agreed to keep our convo totally confidential. Why? She said she admires you and could tell that you wanted to do the right thing from your testimony. Her one concern was so long as, I presume that's as you have counsel, she can't really ethically talk to you without him. But what she suggested is a follow-up with you, with your lawyer, that she and Dan George can lead. Probably can do without other members and Tim. Does that help at all? I can tell she really wants to work with you and is just trying to figure out the right way to do it. I mean, do you think this is actually of interest to her at this point, or is it moot? Like, have they moved beyond it? Oh, very much of interest. She basically just wants to structure it in a way you are comfortable and wants to make sure it's clear if you can speak to them again, if it's not asking you, so you don't get in trouble and then it gets truncated. Okay, many of you might not know. Let me bring this out here. Let me see something here. Liz Cheney is a lawyer. Liz Cheney, lawyer. Liz Cheney, an American attorney. Holy motherfucker. Sorry. I was an attorney for 13 years. You know this. I was, depending on whether or not you want to think I was a good one or a bad one, I don't care. The one thing I know is that my weakest grade in law school was criminal law, and my strongest grade in law school was ethics. Because you don't need to study in order to know what's ethical. Lawyers, I mean, it's the most fundamental rule of the practice of law, and it's one that I was so, neurotically, obsessively, compulsively obsessed with. You do not communicate with someone whom you know to be represented by counsel. Period. Full stop. You dumbass, corrupt son of a biatch. You don't. I once upon a time, and this was where I had a bit of a run-in with a colleague in the practice. The mother effer of a lawyer, this is my own anecdote. You know, you write back and forth to lawyers all the time. It's what you do. You write emails and you're mean and you're nasty. It's sort of like a Twitter war, but more polite. And you call them all sorts of names, but legally so, because you know that one day this might end up in front of a judge, and you don't want to, you don't want to be caught calling a lawyer a lying asshole. You have to call them a dishonest, potentially dishonest individual. And so I get into it back and forth with a lawyer, and the lawyer then replies to me and berates me, just to be expected. And I hit reply all with the most kick-ass of comebacks ever, not realizing that the stupid jackass scoundrel of a lawyer had put his own clients in CC to that email, so that when I replied all, I replied to him and everyone else in CC, unwittingly, unbeknownst. I wouldn't have done it any differently had I known. I just hit reply all. The guy then didn't file an ethics complaint, threatened it. And then I didn't have to go, but I was like, I'm interested in the ethics of this dilemma right here. He puts his own clients in CC and then expects me in reply to remove his clients or not reply all. But bottom line, all I'd say, it's funny. That guy's an asshole. If you're watching, go screw yourself. I still remember your name. People want to ask, Viva, why didn't you stay in the practice of law? Because the practice of law consists of 95% of assholes like that. They put their clients in CC and then threaten to file ethics complaints when you respond to their bullshit emails, copying everyone who they copied in that email. Okay, bottom line, takeaway from all of that, you don't communicate with the client who you know to be represented. And in this case, what we now know is that Liz Cheney knew that Cassidy Hutchinson was represented by counsel and that she couldn't go and talk to Cassidy about her testimony in the absence of her counsel. And why would she want to do that in the absence of her counsel? It's a very, very, very confusing thing. I mean, who the hell knows why she would want to talk with a witness in the absence of their counsel, presumably about their testimony. By the way, Cassidy also lied under oath during her testimony. And it's actually so much even worse than that. Liz Cheney knows the rule. They get her to They get her to cease having that attorney as counsel so that Liz Cheney can have discussions with this witness in the absence of counsel. Whether or not they overtly induce her into providing false testimony, because she said a load of things that were just abjectly dishonest and incorrect. Here, let me get. No, that's the Fannie Willis. Here, this is the summary. Cassidy Hutchinson's most outrageous claims lacked any evidence, and the Select Committee had knowledge that her claims were false when they publicly promoted her. President Trump did not attack his Secret Service detail at any time on January 6th. President Trump did not have intelligence indicating violence on the morning of January 6th. You know who did, though? Yogananda Pittman. Cassidy Hutchinson falsely claimed to have drafted a handwritten note for President Trump on January 6th. Representative Cheney and Cassidy Hutchinson baselessly attempted to disbar Hutchinson's former attorney. These people being Liz Cheney, is the biggest piece of shit on the planet, tied for first with all the other pieces of shit. After she gets Hutchinson, she's having, through the back channel of Alyssa Farah, we'll get to her in a second, to have discussions in the absence of her counsel because she knows that she's represented. They tried to have her attorney disbarred afterwards, maliciously, wrongly disbarred. There's a place for people like that. It's called hell. Of course, she's living in hell right now on earth. When they say like hell is right here, hell is of your making, because Liz Cheney has turned her life into hell, and rightly so and deservedly so. These are evil, evil, awful people. In addition to what I believe to be framing all of the Jan 6ers, even the ones who responded to police violence with violence, framing those people, stealing lives, literally trying to disqualify Trump from the ballot on the basis of insurrection. They have no qualms ruining people's lives through procedural judicial means. Hell is what they deserve, and hell is what they're going to get because they're getting it right here on earth. Objective wrongdoing. And then you have people saying, well, what laws did she break? What laws did you... Diva, be specific. You're a lawyer, right, David? I love when people on the internet use your first name as though it's some sort of like attack. Although it's actually a pathological narcissistic tactic, which I try not to do. Like I call Billy Baldwin Billy Boy, and I do it to irritate, but it's a distinct personality disorder type tactic. You should tell us what law is being broken. Use equivalent Canadian law if your knowledge of American precedent is patchy, which it would be. Some of you might read this and not realize this person is systematically a troll. So there was a benefit of the doubt was given for a long time, to which I replied, considering the evidence demonstrates Liz was communicating with a witness she knew to be represented in the absence of counsel for that witness, and then she tried to have that counsel disbarred, and was allegedly suborning perjury from that witness, which in fact lied under oath. We just saw which ones. Here are the two: subornation of perjury and tampering with a witness, victim or informant. And it's as clear as day what they've done. And by the way, destroying evidence after this committee hearing. The committee was not lawfully formed. Let me get back to the findings, the executive summary findings, before we get into who Alyssa Farah is. Got to bring this up. It's just laid bare for everyone to see here. Former Representative Liz Cheney used the January 6th Select Committee as a tool to attack President Trump at the cost of investigative integrity and Capitol security. The January 6th committee was improperly constituted and lacked authority. Thanks for finding this out now, Loudermilk. Like, I don't want to pull the whole, you got there too late. Bannon already went to jail for contempt of subpoena from this unlawfully formed committee. So it's great that we're now, Republicans are looking into it and they've had a committee to investigate. The committee was always unlawfully formed. It didn't meet the quorum. It didn't have a bipartisan element to it. The bipartisan element is law-breaking Liz Cheney. And now they're finally coming to the conclusion that it was improperly constituted and lacked authority to do things like issue subpoenas, which means that you can't be in contempt of an unlawfully issued subpoena from an unlawfully formed committee that didn't have the authority to issue the subpoena in the first place. The January 6th Select Committee neglected or withheld evidence from its final report and deleted voluminous records it should have preserved. The Department of Defense scapegoated the Washington, D.C. National Guard to distract blame from senior leadership. We all knew that. The FBI and Capitol Police both failed to investigate individuals responsible for the fake gallows. Why would you investigate people for fake gallows? How about the bomb? How about the pipe bomb? No. Subcommittee published more than 44,000 hours from the end. The subcommittee conducted extensive review of investigation into the two pipe bombs on January 5 and 6, and the report is set to be released within the next few days. Holy shit, people. Click on the full report. Here, check this out. It's so much fun. It's all at the tips of our finger. Scroll down and look for the blue text message from Alyssa. Here we go. Look at this. Alyssa Farah Griffin back-channeled with Vice Chair Liz Cheney to help Hutchinson change her story. For nearly a month, Farah Griffin acted as an intermediary between Vice Chair Cheney and the Select Committee's star witness, Hutchinson. As an intermediary, Farah Griffin helped coordinate Hutchinson's third transcribed interview. Without the knowledge of Hutchinson's attorney, Stefan Passantino, in a television panel with a member of the Select Subcommittee, Representative Ratskin is what he is. He's a human enveloped in rat skin. A year following the end of the Select Committee, Hutchinson freely stated that she had, quote, back-channeled for a third interview without my former attorney's knowledge at the time with one of my good friends, Alyssa Farah Griffin. 76 footnote, okay? At this time, Farah Griffin and Hutchinson discussed the optics of Hutchinson leaking, quote, new information, end quote, to the press instead of testifying directly to the subcommittee. Hutchinson's messages indicated that she and Farah Griffin colluded to create a false story about why Hutchinson needed to do a third transcribed interview for the Select Subcommittee to convince her attorney, Passantino. And then we got the text here. Okay. In her May 17, 2021 transcribed interview, Hutchinson testified to a series of uncorroborated and unverified stories that conveniently fit the Select Committee's anti-Trump narrative. Despite already testifying to the subcommittee twice, Hutchinson never previously mentioned this, quote, new information. The subcommittee was only able to obtain a limited number of text messages from Hutchinson and Farah, but Representative Cheney's influence on Hutchinson is apparent from that point forward by her dramatic change in testimony and eventual claims against Donald Trump using second and third-hand accounts. For example, Hutchinson claimed that White House Deputy Chief of Staff Attorney Ornato told her that Trump lunged towards this whole bullshit thing, his car to request to go to the Capitol when his request to go to the Capitol was denied. This story has never been corroborated and was directly refuted by both the United States Secret Service agents in the vehicle with President Trump that day and Ornato himself. It goes on, but what I wanted to show you was this. Passantino. Let's go to the part where they try to disbar Passantino. Finding 7. They tried to disbar the lawyer. After the Hutchinson switched attorneys at Cheney's direction, the Select Committee needed to shore up Hutchinson's credibility as a witness and explain away her ever-changing testimony. To do this, the Select Subcommittee created a narrative that would make Passantino the scapegoat. They manufactured the story that Passantino gave Hutchinson faulty advice, such as instructing Hutchinson to withhold information, to misrepresent her testimony, and even that Passantino implied he would help Hutchinson with future employment in return for favorable testimony. Contrary to the Select Committee and Hutchinson's narrative, however, the subcommittee obtained messages between Alyssa Farah Griffin and Hutchinson, where Hutchinson admits that Passantino was acting in her best interest and that she agreed with his counsel. And then we can look at this. I can't read that. That was Liz's direction. How do you feel about just doing it with Stefan, but answering more questions? You can handle yourself, and he's just there as a figurehead. And basically give the ultimatum, A, we'll come back when we need the assurance, yada, yada, yada. Okay, hold on. He's not acting against me complying. He actually sort of willing to do it because he thinks it builds my credibility as a witness. But he wants just enough from the committee to balance out the public backlash from the lawsuit and to frame me as a super compliant, respectful of congressional subpoenas. He's going to call George this afternoon. Can you tip off Liz or Dan? Who's Dan? Goldman? And see their thoughts. Alyssa Farah, okay, that was definitely at Liz's direction. How do you feel about just doing it with Steph? I'm personally fine with just Liz and Dan, but I have a feeling he'll want it structurally. Oh, Dan is our new lawyer, I guess. Same as my other depots, but I haven't gotten that far with him yet. The subcommittee has reason to believe that the Select Committee coordinated with the Washington, D.C. Bar Association to file an ethics complaint against Passantino. The Select Committee did this by using the content of its not yet public report to accuse Passantino of instructing Hutchinson to lie to congressional investigators, sharing information about her testimony with the press over her objections, sharing information about her testimony with other attorneys, and not disclosing who was paying the bill for her representation. This complaint, reviewed by the subcommittee, was finalized by the D.C. Bar and sent to Passantino the same day the Select Committee's nearly 900-page report was filed. All bar ethics complaint against Passantino was ultimately dismissed, and he was cleared of all the allegations lodged against him. This episode further demonstrates Hutchinson's willingness to create a false public record that contradicts the truth. Can you believe that? There is nothing more evil than gleefully, remorselessly trying to ruin somebody's life. Now, I've been saying that we're going to get to Farah, Alyssa Farah Griffin, and who she is. Let me bring this one up. Can we see this one? I think we can, people. Alyssa Farah Griffin, look at this. In the same week, it was revealed that CNN journalists, I should have put journalists in quotes there, Clarissa Ward and Alyssa Farah, respectively, produced propaganda for terrorist entities and conspired to violate civil rights, subvert democracy. When do these propagandists face professional legal sanctions for such egregious, unethical, and probably illegal conduct? Farah Griffin, by the way, The View, co-host, CNN political commentator, prior White House, Pentagon, Cap Hill, was a career spokesperson, I guess. These are my words. Oh, very nice. And you all remember Clarissa Ward. We're going to have to do that in a second. CNN chief international correspondent. All views are my own. Yep, because your views are propaganda and lies. So within the same week, now this happened a long time ago, but within the same week, we got two CNN commentators, whatever the hell they want to call themselves, participating in the most egregious, unethical conduct imaginable. And those were the receipts that I brought. So Alyssa Farah Griffin, CNN propagandist, on The View. I mean, I didn't know that she was on The View. I don't know. I know Sunny, Whoopi, Joy Behar. Who's another one on that show? I don't watch The View. And that's that. Now, do we have any questions about Liz Cheney, people?